Yeah, welcome everyone. I am joining you from the Wewakai, Wewakam, and Queerka Nations traditional territories. We're pretty excited to continue with some of the projects that we have going on in the next little bit with the nations that we work with up here. And I know that Mike and Cascadia do a lot of work with the nations that they work with as well. So some pretty exciting stuff going on in the seaweed space, and we're always excited to do a little more. Today we have Michael Williamson from Cascadia Seaweed joining us to talk about their biostimulant and agrifeed work, which should be pretty exciting in the seaweed space. So we'll switch to Mike in just a second, but I quickly just wanted to let you guys know that the meeting is being recorded today. So it will be available online on the CARTI projects page. And on that note, if any of you guys have any project ideas or would like to work with us, just reach out to us and feel free to explore the projects that are available on the CARTI projects page as well. I think if most of you are on the email list that I send out, I recently sent out a link to the Seaweed Series page, so you can explore that and explore all of the CARTI offerings that we have as well. Let me just admit these last couple of people that are trickling in. So yeah, I think without further ado, let me stop sharing and I'm going to hand over to Mike. And I think Erin might also drop in once or twice just to help out. So yeah, we'll just have a listen to what those guys have going on, and it should be a great little presentation.
All right, thanks very much, Logan. Can you hear me all right?
I can.
All right, awesome. Good day, folks. My name is Michael Williamson. As introduced, I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of Cascadia Seaweed, located in Sydney, British Columbia. I will be presenting and talking for about 25 to 30 minutes. I hope to have it as a dialogue. Keep your bigger questions to the end. If there's any short snapper questions or quick interjections, I'm happy to take that as well. Many thanks to Logan and the team at North Island College for hosting the series. Certainly appreciate the chance to be involved and talk about what it is we're doing and potentially how it involves you. The presentation today will be a little bit about what we are, what we do, and equally important, why we do it. And as I said at the end, I hope to engage in any questions or dialogue. So Cascadia Seaweed, we cultivate local species of seaweed on low impact farms or structures in the ocean in partnerships with coastal First Nations, and then we harvest that seaweed and produce products for regenerative agriculture. And I'll explain more about what that is later in the talk. And this regenerative agriculture helps farmers improve their yields and reduces their impact and reduces their emissions. We want to do it at a large enough scale to make a large scale difference, to make meaningful impact, both for climate change and for food security. Now, there's a little bit about why we're doing it. We started in 2019, and right away we knew that we had to have scale, we had to have size to make a difference. The more seaweed you grow, generally, the more beneficial it is to the ocean, and it provides more beneficial products for farmers. And as well, as you'll hear, we partner with First Nations communities, and a bigger opportunity means more economic opportunity for them as well. And we need to attract a team, and we need to attract investment to be active participants in the blue economy. So more than building a single business, it's about building a sector. And the more other companies that join us in this sector, the better it is for all of us. We don't really talk about competition, we talk about cooperation. We try to be as open and collaborative with as many others that want to get into the industry as possible. And there's a lot of room for other seaweed farmers, for folks to buy biomass. And as a vertically integrated company, Cascadia Seaweed touches on a lot of aspects. We're also proud to be a certified B Corp and we're registered as a benefit company in British Columbia. So as a team of all Cascadians, we're committed to building a profitable and scalable business that the team members, shareholders, and business partners are proud to be part of. And this is the essence of good business practices, and we're all interconnected. So we work with the First Nations that you see on the screen here, and we've learned that whatever you do, whoever you touch, whatever you work on in the ocean, everybody's involved. One thing with one community can affect another one. And we never talk about First Nations as an amorphous group. We deal with separate communities, separate interests, separate challenges, separate opportunities. I give presentations in other forums, both around North America and overseas, and people talk about the First Nations. And I always correct them and say, no, it's a group of separate individual communities. And it's important to respect that. And that's the way that we work when we partner with them. We're also looking to include more work in the north, set up a northern hub as well as our Vancouver Island hub, and working on cultivating relationships, cultivating seaweed, and getting to products to market. Now, as most of you know, cultivating seaweed in the ocean is working with a regenerative crop. As seaweed grows, it produces oxygen, it uptakes excess nutrients, it provides habitat, and it reduces acidification. Obviously, within limits, the more you grow, the better it is. And there's ecosystem services provided. You'll see just a quick camera grab of salmon interacting with our seaweed farms, and we'll talk a little bit more about that projects. And we do a lot of monitoring and measuring and understanding the impact of the 8 farms we currently have. We ensure genetic diversity, we ensure multi-cropping rather than monocropping, and we ensure that we leave sites better than when we found them. So I'll briefly talk about our operations in the cultivation of sugar kelp, giant kelp, and alaria. The next few slides will go through some of our business, and I'll talk briefly about highlights from all of them. And as I promised, it's not going to be a lecture, it's going to be a conversation. So the first step, once a farm site has been selected, is obviously to get seed to put on the lines. Most of you will know that it starts with the sorus, when the seed or when the plant is reproductive. And we like to gather, in fact, more than like, we follow the regulations and we gather our sorus from within 50 kilometers of the target farm. The sorus is then taken back to our laboratory, and through a variety of steps that our biological and phycological team know very well, we cause the sorus to become reproductive, and we provide spores that can be put on, can grow onto spools, and then the spools can be outplanted. This all takes place in the fall when the tissues are reproductive, and the spools are in aquaria for between 30 and 45 days in order to become robust enough for outplanting. Farm installations, it's a fairly, quote, agricultural practice with anchors, ropes up to floats that define the outline of the farm, floats and buoys for the various cultivation lines. It should be noted that most of our farms are in water depths of between 10 and 80 meters. And the reason we do that is if it's too deep, the scope, that is to say the distance from the anchors to the surface floats, is too great. It becomes very expensive to operate. Farm location is very, very important. We use about a 7-layer GIS when we're selecting farms to ensure water flow, turbidity, nutrients, impact with other marine operations are all considered. We work closely with fisheries and biologists to ensure that the farms are not located in any sensitive areas. And we look at things like interference with other traffic. And of course, is it a great place to grow seaweed? And we've become fairly proficient at installing farms and ensuring that they stay, that there's no detritus, that there's no breakages, and that they're good places to grow seaweed. And from an economic perspective, it's important that the farms are close to wharfs and ports so that when you're transiting from the dock to the farm and back, it's not an incredibly long transit time. As a business, it's important to always ensure that the costs of goods sold, which for us is the seaweed that we harvest, is kept at a low level. Seed deployment, the spools that I mentioned earlier from the aquaria are taken out in boats, and generally before the shortest day of the year, so mid-December, the spools are outplanted on the farms, typically at 2 to 3 meters depth per row, and the rows are typically spaced 2 to 3 meters apart. And we've become fairly proficient at doing this at scale. In the early days, when we started 5 years ago, the 3 partners were able to seed a 1-hectare farm in about 2 days, 1 line at a time. And now with a very experienced and motivated team, we do it 10 lines at a time. And it should also be noted, as you can see in one of the photos, that we work with our First Nations partners. And wherever possible, we transfer the knowledge to the nations and to their citizens that want to work on the water and want to understand how seaweed farming works, so that that knowledge is transferred. And in turn, we gain local operating knowledge on how to do it better, how to do it with less impact. So this is what goes on in seed deployment, typically in the fall. Throughout the season, while it's growing, November, December, January, February, March, we're out there monitoring and taking a wide variety of parameter information: salinity, temperature, turbidity, other life that's growing in the area, and then of course the seaweed itself. How are the young plants reacting to their environment? Are they growing? Are they getting nutrition? What's the fouling? What else is going on? And we keep Dr. Jennifer Clark and her team really solid records on how the seaweed is. And this also provides us information and operational planning from year to year so that we can know which farms have better production, what are things we could do better, perhaps changing the depth, and in some cases, shutting down farms entirely, removing all the infrastructure and going to a different site. That's a very costly activity. So it's important at the very start to select farm sites that you think will be durable and will produce the kind of biomass that you're going to need year after year. And then in April, May, June, it's harvest time. And again, we work with local fishermen, local First Nations, take advantage of fleets and boats and personnel that are in the area to help bring this harvest in. It's a line-by-line operation. It's becoming more automated. For example, we no longer have to have folks standing on either side of the line, cutting off each individual frond. It's done with a cutter bar. It's a little bit faster. The seaweed is gathered into the floating tote bags that you see there, about 250 kilograms a bag. It's left in the water during the harvest day, and at the end of each day, put on flatbeds and taken into cold storage, awaiting processing. We have a couple of commercial fishermen, some who are First Nations members themselves, working with us, and we time the harvest around the Vancouver Island and up in the north in accordance with their schedules, their availability, and the option of going from site to site, and personnel and weather, and a large number of factors. Last year, we harvested about 300 tons, which is something that Vancouver Islanders and BCers should be proud of, one of the largest commercial harvests and cultivation in Canada and in North America. So once we land the seaweed, our current plan is we freeze it to process it, and then we take it out of the freezer as we need it to turn it into our products. I'll just say one point: in the future, we're looking to do a slurry harvest, storing it wet, processing it wet, and selling it wet. We're not there yet right now, so we have an intermediate step of freezing it, and then we take it out of the freezer as we process it, grind it, and we transform it into our two main products, biostimulants and bovine feed supplements, which again, we'll talk about. And there's some interesting things to note in this slide. In the middle and the bottom, that's Hub City Fisheries in Nanaimo, and they were rapidly able to change a fish processing line into a seaweed processing line. And this is one of the things industry in BC generally does very well. We support other business ecosystems, and we are able to provide employment opportunities for folks when there might have been a quiet season or a break in their production schedule. So what are our products? Biostimulants and animal agrifeeds. Biostimulants are liquid additives or soil amendments that are added to crops in big ag. They enable the reduction of harsh synthetic fertilizers by up to 15 to 20%. In jurisdictions like the EU and California, they are mandating the reduction of harsh synthetic fertilizers, and things like nitrogen usage can be reduced by 15 or 20%, which has multiple benefits, both in the production of nitrogen, in the production of greenhouse gases, and how excess fertilizer washes off into the waterways. A biostimulant provides abiotic stress tolerance. It provides reduction of harmful outcomes from drought. It helps plants uptake the nutrients that are present in the soil in a better way. So there's better root mass, there's better shoots, there's faster leafing, there's greater fruit. Biostimulant industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it's growing 10 to 15% globally. Of all the biostimulants in use with big ag, seaweed comprises 41% of biostimulants. So it's a growing pull market, and that is the greatest use of our seaweed biomass. Fortunately, both sugar kelp and giant kelp are excellent and very functional biological ingredients in the biostimulant market. The other side is bovine feed supplements. Seaweed has been found to have beneficial outcomes for cows when you use it as an additive. And by an additive, I'm talking about 2 to 3% by weight of a cow's daily diet. Seaweed can help reduce the amount of methane that cows produce and burp. It can act as a prebiotic in the cow's gut or rumen, and it also improves the feed conversion efficiency. So we're working with AgriFood and AgriFeed Canada and some trial herds to prove out how seaweed in a cow's diet improves the outcome across the board, as I just mentioned. So this is what we use our seaweed for. The interesting thing is, once you've squeezed the seaweed to make the biostimulant, the solid leftover biomass becomes the agrifeed. So it's 100% utilization of the fronds. We don't use the stipes, we don't use the holdfast, but 100% utilization of the fronds. The way the biostimulant is produced is through mechanical means of pressure or ultrasonication, or in a holding reactor where it's gently heated up and left over time, and that helps us extract the biological components. And the important thing to note is that it's a green process. We're doing this right now in Port Alberni, and we're developing a processing facility or a biorefinery in Prince Rupert. Some of you may recall that we had a food brand called Cove, and we made spices, crackers. We were looking at other products, puffs. The challenge with this is that the consumer packaged goods industry, or CPG, is very, very competitive. We were going up against Doritos and taco chips. It wasn't using enough of the seaweed, and the growth trajectory for a company like ours wasn't fast enough. We are a seaweed company that had a food brand, and had we stayed in the CPG world, we would have become a CPG company that happened to grow seaweed. We want to cultivate a lot of seaweed. on a lot of the coastline with a lot of communities and provide a lot of benefit. And if we were only a CPG company, we wouldn't have been able to do that. So there was a management takeover by the food folks of the brand, and it lives today. And in fact, they're expanding and they're able to sell Cove food products in a variety of markets. It's just that we are no longer associated with them, but we're very proud to have been the founding company that started it. Our interest is still in food and food security, but we're addressing that through our biostimulant products and our bovine feed. The biostimulant products are branded. We have CX, which is straight sugar kelp extract, Regenegrow, which is the macrocystis extract, and field kelp, which is a blend of macrocystis and sugar kelp, and the field kelp is not organic, whereas CX is. It's the same organic process, it's just that we've not gone through the certification. And the picture there of oats shows with the yellow label untreated oats, and then the ones with the larger fronds and the much greater root mass was oats that were raised with the input or the addition of CX. There's other growing trials ongoing, and it's one of the standards in the biostimulant industry is sort of the before and after, or the control and the non-control of biostimulants added to crops. And we're currently conducting further trials with those. I mentioned the agrifeed product. The brand name for that is Ruminade. You will have heard, no doubt, other companies doing bovine feed with Asparagopsis. CH4 is a great example of a good company doing good work with Asparagopsis. Asparagopsis is typically tank raised, and it has a different active ingredient or process to reduce methane. There's no way that the world's going to grow enough Asparagopsis to address all the methane emissions, ruminant emissions alone. So products like Ruminade or others from brown kelps will be certainly as much in demand and are going to be complementary in the marketplace with what's done with Asparagopsis. As I said at the outset, it's not about competition, it's about collaboration. It's a big market. We all have to participate in reducing harmful impacts on the environment, harmful impacts on our land. Because we've become quite proficient at growing seaweed and we've assembled a very solid scientific team, we're also called upon to provide nature-based solutions. And a definition of nature-based solutions may be using the cultivation of seaweed for better outcomes for the planet or for the oceans or for communities. This is a sideline business, but as I said, because we're good at it, we provide consulting services, and I'm going to give you highlights of 3 projects that we're involved in where we take our talent and our expertise and direct it in slightly different venues. We did a study with the provincial government and our partners at Nachalnath Seafood on opportunities on Vancouver Island to understand what communities have, what communities can support in terms of floats and talent and wharfs and loading, and more importantly, workforce development. This study's been wrapped up. We've had a couple of workshops, and the results will be available. I'm sorry I can't speak to exactly where the results are available, but this is one example of nature-based solutions. We produced a green gravel nursery with NRC Canada, built it in British Columbia, used local talents and resources, and shipped it to Nova Scotia, where they now have a green gravel production system. And the first outplanting of this has already taken place. And we have our scientists and engineers working with the government in Nova Scotia to help them understand how to take best use of the nursery and look at green gravel. For those of you that don't know, green gravel is just that, taking a substrate or gravel or fist-sized stones and growing the sorus and the little baby seaweeds on these rocks, and then it's outplanted more in a wholesale manner over an area rather than on lines. Of course, another way of addressing this is reforestation. It works with giant kelp. It works with saccharina and potentially other species. It's important to note, just with the same thing with our farm locations, that anytime green gravel is deployed, it's important to have the certification, the licensing, and the site surveys in place so that when you reforest an area, it's with, again, the seaweed that's natural or should be natural to that area, that the source is collected from within 50 kilometers of where the outplanting is, and then it makes sense. It's a great way to do larger scale reforestation, but it's certainly not a free-for-all. The last one that I'll talk about is called the COSME project, and it's with a client of ours, Plan International, who's working with Global Affairs Canada, and it's working with women seaweed farmers in Kenya to help them improve their outcomes, both through more wide-scale cultivation of the seaweed they're also doing, perhaps some better techniques or tricks and talents, and then to help them develop a better market for their seaweed. Right now, in Kenya, typically the seaweed is harvested, collected, and then sold to an aggregator who then sells it on, and there's not as much value for the local Kenyan farmers. So we've been there a couple of times and help provide expertise. Fortunately, there are members of our team who have a really solid background in international aid and development. One of the things you cannot do as a North American is go to a global South country and tell them better ways of doing things. The first thing you do when you go to these communities is you listen and you understand and you interpret the local conditions, and then you work with them. But it's just a great example of how all of us in British Columbia can help folks in other jurisdictions as well. And we do that in the commercial seaweed industry. We exchange best practices with folks in Norway and United Kingdom and the Netherlands and United States, and vice versa. It's a great thing to be part of such a collaborative community. And that, in a nutshell, is Cascadia Seaweed. At heart, we're a for-profit company. Profit is what enables us to grow and build more farms, work with more communities, and provide more climate-smart products. And on the side, with nature-based solutions, provide better outcomes for other communities. But again, we do that with the lens of sharing and involving and working with as many folks as possible. I've taken 30 minutes, which was my target. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'd also like to thank my colleague, Erin, who's on the call, for putting the presentation together. Some of the questions she may be better able to answer. And I'll turn it back over to Logan to tell me what to do with my presentation, probably stop sharing it, and then answer any questions or provide feedback on any of your dialogue. Thanks very much for your attention so far.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I will just open up the floor to questions. If anyone just wants to raise their hand to ask any questions, or you can drop it into the meeting chat. I do have one or two lined up, so maybe we will start with those. Here's the first one. Okay, so I have a question around Cascadia and the First Nations, which was kind of addressed a little bit in the chat that you just gave, Mike. But the first question I have is what responsibility and risk Cascadia shoulders, and how value is created, captured, and distributed between Cascadia and First Nations?
Right. So I'll give a bit of a generic answer on working with a First Nation. First of all, we decide where we want to grow seaweed, and then we see in whose sovereign territory that is. We engage with the leadership of the First Nations community, introduce ourselves, and say we're looking to expand, put in a farm. Is there an interest in the community? And that process takes about a year. No relationship is built instantly, so we start a mutually respectful dialogue. Once it's determined that the community would like to participate, We discuss the licensing process, and we work with the community and do most of the licensing to get either a greenfield tenure in place or changing a shellfish tenure into a seaweed tenure. Then we look at the cost of the farm infrastructure, and again, work with the community, typically through things like PIC fee or grants or other agencies that want that community to have a farm. We provide all the planning for it. We help the community get the funds. They build the farm with us, and they own the farm. So that's the first benefit. They now have a licensed seaweed site, and they own a farm. We provide rent for the farm. We provide or pay rent for the tenure. We offer employment, seasonal or full-time, for all the work to do with that farm to the community. And then we offer opportunities through the processing and harvesting, the entire life cycle of cultivation for community members that will want to participate in that. And as the same with everybody, we provide the opportunity to also invest and become a shareholder in Cascadia itself. We also provide some communities with a tool to assert their sovereignty. There's a lot of cases where finfish or shellfish just won't work in an area, but a First Nation wants to assert its rights and titles in an area. And a lot of times, real estate or infrastructure is one way of showing that fact. And some First Nations have been able to say, nope, that's our water. There's our seaweed farm. We're working it. It's ours. So it's very different with each community. And as I said at the outset, it's absolutely not one size fits all. There are different benefits to each of the communities. And all of these communities look at the bottom line just like the rest of us. What's the bottom line from an ecological perspective? What's the bottom line from an environmental perspective? And what's the bottom line from a fiscal perspective? If it makes sense, the dialogue continues. If it doesn't make sense, we both respectfully disengage.
Yep, that's awesome. I don't see any other. Oh, yeah. Aaron's got.
And Bruce had his hand up.
Bruce had his hand up. All right, let's
I had
go
a
with
question
Bruce.
as well. Thanks for your presentation, Michael. I've been working with biochar, and I have a question that's gained recognition in regenerative agriculture for its ability to retain water, nutrients, and promote microbiology. And it's also been shown to be beneficial as a livestock feed supplement and as a bedding amendment to improve the bedding in livestock. So I was wondering if your company had looked at applying biochar in kelp cultivation, but as also combining that with kelp for a biochar and kelp value-added agricultural product.
Right. Thanks for the question, Bruce. We've not looked at biochar as an input to our process. The team, again, led by Dr. Jen Clark and Matt Obie, the engineer, has gotten very good at producing great biomass at the lowest cost. On the product side, biochar, as you say, is a great soil amendment. It's right up there alongside biostimulants, and farmers need all the solutions. The way we address biochar is when folks like yourself come to us and say, hey, I'm a biochar manufacturer. I want to use your seaweed biomass, or I want to use your biostimulant and build my business and use that as an input to improve my product. We're wide open for those kind of discussions. We ourselves are not producers of biochar and won't go down that path, just simply because of bandwidth, and we want to maintain our focus on liquid biostimulants.
Right on. Thank you.
And Logan, I think Blair had his hand up, or he was indicating that he had a question.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mike. That's very good. I've really enjoyed this. I'm in the process of setting up a farm. I'm doing the licensing right now. I'm up on Johnson Strait. And I was just wanting to ask if you have done any research or have knowledge into the medical research market, because that's what I'm kind of interested in.
Sure. So the good news and bad news is that seaweed has dozens and dozens and dozens of uses. We would have all heard about plastics from seaweed, animal feed from seaweed, fabrics, food. There's a company in Vancouver called Arc Medical that uses exudate from seaweed for post-laparoscopic surgery. They have found with a specific type of kelp that the exudate, when injected abdominally, helps organs stay lubricated post-surgery and then gets absorbed naturally into the body. They purchase their seaweed from Norway. And obviously, if you think about injecting something into the body, there's checks and balances at every stage of the way. So they've stuck with their Norwegian supplier because that's what the FDA has certified. So there are applications like that. Another great medical benefit is fucoidins, and our seaweeds in British Columbia are very rich in fucoidins. And this is a big market in Asia, and it's starting to become a burgeoning market in North America as a supplement, and it's quite a valuable supplement. Again, we focused on ag input and purposely put blinders on other things like that, like medical. I would put medical in the category of low volume, high value. So if you're a farmer or a producer that's laser focusing on one thing like that, there's plenty of opportunity. So that's been our experience with it.
That's good. That's good. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Blair. Thanks,
Mike,
Mike.
I may phone you and make an appointment to see you.
Yeah, not a problem. And again, as I say, it's not just lip service. We really are collaborative, and we take calls every day. And when we can help people out, we do. And if we can't, we direct them to others that can. And let me just give you a quick example about that. We grow our own seed for our farms, and we have had folks come to us saying, "Hey, I need 1,000 meters of seaweed spools. Will you sell it to me?" And the answer is typically no, we won't, because we know there's other entrepreneurs like Tom Campbell of Bamfield that's in the business of making seaweed seed and selling it to folks. So we don't want to pirate or take away from others that are trying to grow their own businesses. We'll point to folks like that. So Blair, I'm happy to answer your questions, or actually to have people that really know what they're talking about answer your questions, through the company. Contact Aaron or myself, but we'll either point you in the right direction or hopefully give you some of our shared knowledge.
Okay, thank you very much.
Cool. I think Paulina has a question there for you, Mike.
Hi, Michael. I am Paulina Zanella. I am co-founder of Talasso and Talasso Biotech. We're currently working with the high-value extraction of Sargasso seaweed, actually. So in the same family of kelp, but we call it the ugly sister of kelp because nobody wants Sargasso, but we have so much that we have to do something with it. So we're currently working on the extraction of polysaccharides, such as alginates, fucoidins, and wondering if you are willing to explore, because you could do your biostimulants, then we could do the extraction of these polysaccharides, and then you can still have the feed for bovine. So wondering if you're willing to explore collaborations outside of with companies from outside.
Yeah, absolutely. Your first point of contact should be into Aaron, and then we can have a dialogue about that. 100%.
Fantastic. And I think that Paulina is going to be presenting next month a little bit about the work that she's doing, which I think is down in Mexico.
Well, the company is based in Norway, but the refinery is being built this is a container-based refinery, so it's mobile to be able to move it during the season.
Follow the sargassum.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the first refinery will be deployed in 1 month in Puerto Rico. So you're all invited to come see.
Awesome. One of the things I'll say, just to add a bit of color to the discussion, we started the concept in 2018, and the way the company started was my business partner and co-founder Bill Collins did a study for Vancouver Island economic opportunities. And one of the 4 was seaweed cultivation. And in 2018, that was about 2 companies globally. And it's because it's been a catch-22 situation. Nobody was doing anything with seaweed because there wasn't a lot of available biomass. And there was not a lot of available biomass because nobody was doing anything with seaweed. There was no pull. And as a company like ourselves and like Paulina's company and what Bruce and Blair want to do, it's been sort of lockstep all the way along. As the demand increases, the supplies increase. And sometimes there's a mismatch where people produce too much seaweed, and that's not good for business, or where there's too much demand, and then producers look for other feedstocks. So it's been tremendously exciting, and that can be construed a lot of ways, tremendously exciting over the last 5 years to see the growth of this industry, both in British Columbia, on the West Coast, and globally. And British Columbia is blessed. We call it the Goldilocks zone, where it's got the right amount of temperature, it's got the right amount of proximity to ports and shipping, very talented workforce, reasonable legislative approach to licensing, and communities and First Nations communities that want to partner. So when I hear things about mobile refineries, that's part of the natural evolution. And 5 years ago wasn't possible. We wouldn't even have had this meeting 5 years ago.
Yeah, super cool stuff. I think we have a question from Sarah, and then I have a question for you and Aaron myself. So go ahead, Sarah.
Hi, Michael. Thanks for the presentation. I'm curious from kind of more of a scientific perspective, how you're choosing your sites and if you've had any issues with things like temperature or other environmental variables, and if you have good sources of data before you choose your sites, or if you've had to move things around or anything like that.
Sure. I see Dr. Jennifer Clark's on the call, and if she can't readily speak, I won't put her on. There you are. Do you want to answer that, Jen?
Hi, Sarah. Yeah, so when we can, sometimes we don't get a choice. So the ocean is quite big, but sometimes where we can actually put a farm can be determined on the current use, the current holders, and what licenses there are. So sometimes we don't actually get a chance to do environmental stuff first. We put like a line out and we see how it grows, and we can usually establish from there whether a site is suitable or not. So we have had places that aren't suitable, and they're in hindsight, all the data that shows is absolutely what showed why it didn't succeed. But then we have very good sites, and the data does support that. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. And I'm just curious, as you know, I work with the Marine Plan Partnership and thinking about areas where kelp is in decline. So it'd be really interesting to know the areas that you found weren't suitable and how that matches up selfishly from the wild kelp and what's going on there. So maybe I'll.
Yeah, there's definitely tools as well that are out there. Our senior research scientist, Dr. Colin Bates, has developed a site suitability model that helps indicate some areas that are suitable for kelp. Obviously, we have to do a check and see to make sure that they are actually suitable, so ground truthing. So there's lots of different ways, both using tools and collecting data that help us look for site suitability.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool. That's fantastic information. Thanks, guys. I don't see too many more questions in the chat there or any hands up. So I have a question for Aaron and Mike, and I guess Jen too. How excited are you guys for the International Seaweed Symposium in Victoria?
I'm going to let Jen and Aaron answer that one for reasons known only to them.
Should I put okay, we're really excited about the International Seaweed Symposium. As you know, Cascadia is a partner in the ISS, coming here to Victoria May 4th to the 9th, 2025. The committees are putting together a great program for you and lots of social activities involving seaweed. So there's plenty of everything seaweed related for all seaweed. I call us lovingly seaweed nerds out there for both biology, ecology, aquaculture, biostimulants, all the goods in aquaculture as well. So please check out. Erin just put a link in the chat to the website. We'll be filling up that website with more things over time. So do check in regularly, and also make sure to check all the social media apps. Maybe Erin, you can pop those in there too, some of the handles for our social media.
And this is a big event for the seaweed community, and it's a big event for Victoria and the local community as well. The world of phycologists and all the attendant industries and support are going to be coming here, and we're really excited to be part of the organization that's going to put on a great show.
Yeah, it's going to be really great to hear what's going on from all parts of the world in this space. And it's really nice that it's, not just like a strictly very sciencey academic based piece. It's going to be really open to a lot of different avenues and different things from the whole kelp space, which is going to be fun. Yeah. I don't see any other questions. So I think that we will.
Oh, there's one hand that just went up.
Oh,
I do have one question.
Oh, okay, fantastic. Let's go for it.
Okay. Do you have any insight into the synergies from raising seaweed and shellfish in close proximity?
Right. So there's both anecdotal and I'll let Jen add something here. Both anecdotal and scientific information that shows that IMTA, integrated multitrophic aquaculture, works. So shellfish in proximity to seaweed and vice versa. The seaweed grows more prolific. The shellfish grows more prolific. Shells become stronger. Meat mass is better. And this has also been extended to the third arm of the aquaculture triangle, fish farms. I cannot comment on whether fish farms are good things or bad things, but in terms of IMTA, there has been positive interactions between those three things, certainly seaweed and shellfish, as I said, both anecdotally and scientifically. Jen, do you want to jump in there and add?
Yeah, sure. So Terry Chopin on the other side of Canada has been doing a lot of work with IMTA. There's lots of research involved with seaweed. I know Chris Pierce was on here as well from DFO, and he can probably comment. But we actually had one of our farms growing next to a mussel farm, and both anecdotally, because we didn't actually record this scientifically, but anecdotally, I can actually see that that our kelp actually grew quite well and quite extensively than some of the local seaweeds that were found in that area, and the mussels in return also grew better. Pardon me. They also grew really well as well, much bigger mussel meat as well. So I don't know if Chris Pierce is still on here and he could also mention anything. Maybe not.
Well,
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, there you go.
Yes, it's something I've been working on for a number of years. I'm with Fisheries and Oceans Canada in Nanaimo, but I haven't been working so much on the macroalgal side of things. It's more about combining invertebrates with finfish. So we've been growing sea cucumbers with salmon and oysters with sea cucumbers, but Jennifer and I had actually put together a proposal to look at combining kelps and shellfish and salmon that unfortunately wasn't funded just because the funding program seems to have gone away into the ether right now. I don't know why. It's ACRDP, which is DFO funding. But yeah, it's an interesting concept. I mean, it's basically taking what nature does and doing it commercially for the benefit of the bottom line in terms of dollars, and also for the benefit of the environment. So it's an interesting concept.
Cool. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Jen. I hope that answers your question, Doug.
Thank you.
And it also
Fantastic.
highlights the collaborative nature of this community as well. And, you know, there's many of you on this call that we know or have interacted with, and it's always great that folks are willing to dive in and provide answers and support and comment and criticisms too. No industry is beyond criticism.
Yeah, it's always good to see the progress that we're making, and the little bits and bobs that are going on alongside it. Definitely coming into it with an open mind is a good thing. Yeah. I don't see any other questions. I don't see any other hands up. So I think that we might finish things off there. That kind of ends us a little bit before the hour, so people can squeeze in a bite to eat before they get back to things. Or just take the rest of the afternoon off, but don't tell your boss that I said that. Yeah, thanks everyone for coming. I'll just quickly remind you that it is recorded, so we'll hopefully get it online soon. The last two from this year are online now, so if you pop onto the CARTI projects page, explore around there, and also just watch those videos if you missed them the last couple of times, and share them around. Erin has just dropped into the chat. If you have any follow-up questions or comments that you didn't get to ask today, you can email her, Erin at CascadiaSeaweed.com. If Erin doesn't mind, I can include her email on the follow-up that I generally send out when the video is all on the internet for everyone to watch. So yeah, thanks again, Mike and Erin, for the presentation. This was fantastic. We love it as always. And yeah, Jen, Chris, everyone that kind of contributed today to the discussion. Also, thank you guys. And thanks everyone for joining. So yeah, we'll see you all next month when Paulina is presenting.
Thanks, Logan.
Fantastic. Thanks
folks.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Have a great
Thanks,
afternoon.
Logan.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thank you.